At 85, Julie Andrews is finally speaking with a clarity she avoided for most of her career. The world knows her as the symbol of grace, discipline, and unshakable composure. What the world did not see were the moments that shaped her survival, the moments that tested her values, her safety, and her identity long before fame arrived. These truths remained private for decades, guarded behind the image she was expected to maintain. Today we uncover the 6 experiences she now feels ready to share, and the final one forces a complete rethinking of the Julie Andrews the world thought it knew. Number 6. The childhood that stole her safety. She was born in 1935 in Walton-on-Thames, a child of wartime Britain and a family that never found steady ground. Her parents separated when she was very young. When her mother partnered with the singer Ted Andrews, Julie entered a new household shaped by touring schedules, constant travel, and money that disappeared as quickly as it arrived. Behind the public image of the prodigy stood a child carrying far more than talent. She joined her mother and stepfather on stage in music halls and radio shows, performing long before she understood the weight of what she was providing. Her voice kept the family afloat. School routines faded. Applause replaced childhood. The most difficult moments came at night. Julie has spoken with quiet clarity about her stepfather's drinking and the fear it brought into the house. She recalled locking her bedroom door because she felt unsafe, listening for footsteps in the hallway and hoping they would move past her room. It was in those hours that she learned caution, vigilance, and the skill of reading danger before it arrived. As she later put it, "I learned to protect myself very early." That environment shaped her sense of responsibility. Work became duty, silence became survival, trust became something earned only after long observation. It was the beginning of a pattern that would follow her through her teens. Because as the walls at home grew less stable, the family leaned harder on her voice, and the next moment in her life shows how quickly a child can become the household's only anchor. Number 5. The burden she never chose. She was barely in her teens when performances across Britain became her routine. While other children moved through classrooms and playgrounds, she moved through train stations, backstage corridors, and rehearsal halls. When her mother removed her from school to join the act full-time, the shift felt immediate. Childhood rhythms disappeared. Work became the center of every week. The pressure was not abstract. If Julie worked, the family could pay its bills. If she rested, the household felt the strain. Managers expected precision. Audiences expected perfection. Her mother expected reliability. Julie learned to adjust travel plans, memorize music, and protect her voice as if her stability and the family's stability were the same thing. As she later reflected, it all rested on the singing. One moment captures the weight clearly. During a long run of performances, she arrived backstage exhausted after weeks of travel. A stagehand asked if she needed a break. Before she could answer, her mother stepped in and said, "She is fine. She knows we cannot slow down." Julie remembered the silence that followed, the sense that her own limits were less important than keeping the household afloat. Leaving school created a quieter cost. She lost the steady friendships, daily lessons, and gentle mistakes that shape adolescence. Instead, she gained discipline, professionalism, and an understanding of how adults negotiate ambition. These skills helped her later career, but they also reminded her of what she had never experienced. Childhood became something she watched in others, not something she lived herself. Carrying her family so young reshaped her idea of duty. It taught her to provide first and question later. But the next revelation would shake the foundation she thought she was supporting. It came from the person she trusted most, and it changed the way she understood her own place in the family. If you want to follow more untold stories from behind the spotlight, you can subscribe to stay with us. Number 4. The truth that rewrote her childhood. She was a teenager when the moment arrived. The house had been restless that evening, the kind of night when emotions moved faster than conversations. Julie's mother, struggling with her own turmoil, revealed that the man Julie had always called her father was not her biological parent. The words came quickly with no preparation and no steady setting. Julie later described the shock as a moment that left the room spinning, a truth delivered without protection. For a few seconds, she did not speak. She simply tried to understand what the sentence meant, how it connected to the life she thought she knew. She remembered feeling the air change in the room, as if every familiar detail had shifted slightly out of place. In the days that followed, she looked through old memories with new eyes. Photographs, stories, and family routines took on a different tone. She wondered who had known, who had chosen silence, and why the truth surfaced in that moment instead of a calmer one. Relatives later recalled how composed she appeared, unaware that composure was her way of containing the confusion she felt. The revelation reshaped her understanding understanding of trust. It was not simply learning about another man. It was learning that the adults around her had held a secret about her identity, a secret that surfaced in a moment of instability. To the outside world, she looked confident and sure of her path. Inside, she was sorting through the sudden realization that part of her foundation had been built on an omission. She carried the impact quietly. The timing made it heavier. She was already working to support the family. Already. Navigating a home marked by unpredictable moods and shifting loyalties. The truth sharpened her instincts. It taught her to rely on her own steadiness when the adults she depended on could not offer their own. The moment did not break her, but it stayed with her as a quiet reminder of how quickly certainty can turn. And the challenge that followed brought those questions even closer to her own safety. Number 3. The night when caution replaced trust. She has spoken calmly about moments in her youth when her stepfather's drinking created an atmosphere she did not feel safe in. On 2 occasions, she felt him approach her bedroom at night in ways that made her uncomfortable. The concern was serious enough that she began locking her door before she slept. It felt necessary, she later said, a simple sentence that carried the weight of what she feared might happen if she did not take precautions. Living with an unpredictable adult shaped the rhythm of the house. Some nights were quiet, others shifted suddenly. Julie learned to listen for changes in tone, footsteps, or tension, adjusting her own behavior to keep herself and her siblings protected. That awareness became a skill she carried well beyond childhood, a form of self-preservation learned earlier than anyone should have to learn it. As she grew older, this vigilance became almost second nature. She planned her evenings carefully, kept her personal space organized so she could sense disruptions quickly, and stayed close to the parts of the house where she felt most secure. Relatives later remembered how composed she seemed, unaware that the calm exterior hid constant assessment. These habits helped her manage schoolwork, rehearsals, and travel, turning caution into a quiet form of strength. She never described herself as fearful. She described herself as prepared. Because she was working to support the family, leaving the household was not an option. Instead, she adapted, managing her responsibilities while maintaining the precautions she had put in place. The experience shaped her understanding of boundaries, trust, and the difference between public appearances and private reality. Those early lessons stayed with her when she entered Hollywood, and what she witnessed there showed her that instability did not belong only to her childhood. The next moment in her story reveals how the industry tested her values in ways she never expected. Number 2. The night Hollywood tested her values. In 1971, she attended a private gathering with her husband, surrounded by people whose influence shaped careers. During the party, someone placed a line of white powder in front of her, presenting it with a smile that felt more like a challenge than an offer. The room waited to see whether the woman known for grace and restraint would break character. Julie later said she felt terrified, but her response was immediate. She stepped back and said, "No, thank you," her voice steady. Despite the pressure in the air, the moment exposed a truth she had sensed in smaller ways throughout her career. Behind polished greetings and polite conversations, young performers often face pressures no one discussed openly. She had heard stories about inappropriate expectations, blurred boundaries, and people who use their status to test how far someone would go. She avoided many of these traps not through luck, but through instinct, discipline, and a sense of self shaped by years of responsibility at home. The encounter at the party became a quiet turning point. Her public warmth had been used as bait, a way to provoke a reaction. The hosts treated the situation lightly, but Julie understood exactly what it was, a deliberate attempt to see whether she would compromise her principles. She chose not to. "It was never a question for me," she said later. After the party, she took time to reflect on what the moment had revealed. The pressure had not come from strangers on the outside. It had come from people who shaped careers, people who understood exactly how her reputation worked. Julie later recalled feeling unsettled not only by what was offered, but by the expectation behind it. She wondered how many young performers had faced similar situations without the ability to say no. In the weeks that followed, she became more observant in industry settings, watching how power operated quietly in rooms where everyone pretended nothing unusual was happening. The experience stayed with her as a reminder of how often glamour conceals pressure, and how easily the wrong room can turn a simple moment into a test of character. Yet nothing in Hollywood compared to the loss that came next, a moment that struck not at her image, but at the center of her identity. Number 1. The voice taken in a single moment. In 1997, she entered surgery believing her doctors would correct a small issue with her vocal cords. The procedure was described as simple and protective, something that would preserve the gift she had spent her life shaping. When she woke, she knew something was wrong. The control she relied on was gone. A repair meant to strengthen her voice had instead taken it from her. The emotional shock arrived quickly. Julie later told AARP that the quiet inside her felt unfamiliar, as if part of me had gone missing. Singing had been more than talent, it was the structure of her life, the way she understood her place in the world. Losing it felt like losing a core piece of herself. The grief grew slowly, settling into a long stretch of depression that she worked through one day at a time. After the surgery, she entered a period of reassessment that touched every part of her life. Simple routines became reminders of what she had lost. Speaking in interviews required effort. Watching other performers sing brought a quiet ache she rarely expressed aloud. Friends described her as reflective during this time, choosing silence over frustration as she tried to understand how her future had changed. She met with specialists, kept detailed notes about her recovery, and pushed herself to stay engaged with creative work. The process was slow, but each small step helped her rebuild a life no longer centered on music. There were legal consequences as well as emotional ones. She filed suit against the surgeon and the hospital, arguing that the damage should never have happened and that she had not been warned of the risk. The case settled in 2000. Later, medical treatments improved her speaking voice, but nothing brought back the instrument she had trained since childhood. One operation had rewritten her future with a single mistake. Over time, she rebuilt her identity around different forms of expression. She wrote books, narrated films, taught, and stayed close to the creative world in new ways. She acknowledged that the loss never fully healed, but she learned to live with its shape. In therapy, she came to understand that the end of her singing voice did not have to be the end of her voice altogether. Her story stands as a reminder of how suddenly a life can shift and how strength often begins in the quiet moments that follow a loss.